Yeah, so I mean, we're seeing this more and more on the news. The real heroes of our people primate species are being murdered. Um, those that portray heroes in the movies are being discovered to be villains, whether they play heroes or villains in the movies or TV shows. And their fans hope they don't go to jail. So, yes, again, this is discussing COP28. And I tell you that there is very little hope for our species based on the reality of the human condition if it is properly measured. Here's what I wrote here. You can press pause and read this. You might have a hard time seeing it, so I'm going to read it. So this was part of another comment to Dave Barlas, who has the YouTube channel where he's incongruent, he's a hypocrite, but I'm not even sure he knows he is, right? Because at this point his momentum is so strong and he does good. It just that he does good as was needed in the 80s. And because he's got so many followers, Dave Barlas now, that he actually does more harm in 2023 by not living life as a minimalist and not doing more to not empower those that he's criticizing, which he doesn't seem to get that he's doing. So either he's a hypocrite or he suffers from cognitive dissonance. So here's what I wrote as part of Dave's comment, which I attached to this. Will this young generation now, the activists, A, give up on taking the bad men to court and expect them to go to jail, as if they did, then their jails would be even more comfortable than your own home. And this was talking to Dave. B, many, many public lynchings. And this is happening already in a lot of cultures of the world. It's just that we're not lynching the right people. We're not lynching the elites before the next COP. And again, I'm not promoting this, but I'm just saying they're getting desperate. I'm getting old, but they're getting desperate if they're becoming more and more aware of what is their life to come and they're not interested in suicide, then they're getting desperate at saving their own futures. So that this predictable evil is reduced instead of increased again before the next COP. Become religious while also believing in some extraterrestrials that would also bring down the karma so that activists can retire without going to jail or dying, like being murdered or being stressed and depressed. D, protest for the creation of a mass denial pill about how bad our species truly is so that everyone can enjoy the Anthropocene, the end of life as we know it, as a failed species, equally. E, all and none of the above. It doesn't make a difference at this point of the Anthropocene because of HSD that I've been talking to you guys about, as the unbearable heat will force 99% of current young and all people primate future generations, as the species that we know ourselves to be right now, to go live in caves. So yes, we will have to go live in caves because the temperature in there will be manageable. And so will maybe, radiation from not just the sun, but I'm talking about our industries and including nuclear and our war complexes that will go nuts and self-destruct. So this is insane what I wrote, but it's true. And it's really easy to predict this. And how am I doing it without going insane and partaking in these behaviors? Well, these are the skill sets that I've even wanted to teach activists. I've wanted to teach this to indigenous people, how to not turn against each other, how to not just point a finger, but actually learn the skill sets to be able to be productive, functioning activists in, critical thinking type ways for the long term without really benefits to themselves, because heroes don't get rewarded, not real heroes, not during the Anthropocene with a species like us that has failed.
Nina Lakhani, if COP28 was a big win for big oil, I'm wondering two things. What most shocked you going to this climate summit? Passing in the hallways constantly, the more than 2,400 oil lobbyists, as you said, far outweighing the number of indigenous people.
And having to travel there, the activists who weren't going to go there to get deals to make profits from, but they had to go to the villains' lairs to actually say, hey, have you thought of not being a villain?
What most shocked you, but also what gave you the most hope?
So I think, the shocking thing is, I feel like I sound like a broken record with this because it sort of goes in every story that I write. And I'm constantly, talking about this with my colleagues, is that, there wasn't, the fossil fuel sort of capture of COP and the industry capture of COP isn't new. The reason that we still need to have a COP and the reason that greenhouse gas emissions continue to rise is because this process has been captured by people, fossil fuel industry and others, and banks and others that make money from this expansion from the beginning. This year, it was particularly blatant and huge, right?
So I went to my bank, okay, and the lady was helpful. I decided not to cancel my not-for-profit society account, although I know British Columbia will never allow my BC society to manifest, because it means that when it does, they will have to see, the people primates, how much work they have to do to become the parents that their kids deserve. So, but anyways, I'm talking to the lady, and she's the assistant manager, and the guy that got hired as manager has 7 years with this bank, while she has 21, but because he was manager somewhere else, she didn't get the job, and she didn't want to relocate for a manager job somewhere else, so she stayed there with her family. But she's the assistant manager that should be manager, that had to train him because he wasn't that good at being the manager of her branch. And again, it takes people like that to have banks succeed. People that have no ability to even defend their own human rights and raise kids to be the same way in a man's world. Now, she knows a lot about what's really happening in the world. And again, you can see she has skill sets where she's not breaking down and crying due to reality in every interview. So if you don't want to ask me how I can cope with reality, although, 99% of the people primates I share DNA with help accelerate everything wrong instead of do the work to fix things, then ask her, how is she able to do all of this stuff?
It has to do with the fact that COP was being run by the executive of an oil and gas company. But I think that thing that surprises me most is that how countries like the US and Norway and Canada and the UK are so successful in painting the Arab states and the Gulf countries and others as the villains, right? That it's these petro states that they like to blame. There is no bigger petrostate in the world than the United States of America, right? If we're talking about quantities of oil and gas expansion, the biggest villains are the US and the other sort of, and the umbrella group of countries like Canada and Australia, the EU. They're the ones that are expanding and benefiting from oil and gas. And that's what shocks me, is just how good they've been at painting themselves as the good guys, as climate champions.
Norway is currently very successful as painting themselves as innovators in the world when they are some of the greatest villains. I've been there. I've talked to their public servants. They agree with me on things wrong with their government, and yet they are all like that bank assistant manager I just talked about.
Really, they're the ones, when you follow the negotiations, they're the ones in the back rooms develop any recognition of equity, any move to have climate finance be fair. They're the ones that are blocking that, and I find that it's so two-faced, it's so hypocritical, and that I find Is it surprising that the chief executive of an oil company is trying to do oil deals at COP? Not really. I mean, it's terrible, yeah, but it's not really surprising. It's shocking, and we should be shocked at the fact that all the parties, all the countries allowed for the UAE and voted for the UAE, to accepted the UAE as a president, but also that they go there saying one thing and actually doing the other, right? The US is very, very keen to have everybody phase out coal. So is the UK. Why? Because we've extracted all of our coal. We don't care about coal anymore because most of it's gone. We care about oil and gas. That's why it did not want any more strong language than the transition away from, and it's so watered down. Is it historic? It's something, but it's not by nowhere near enough. And honestly, I think it really could be the nail in the coffin for 1.5, for keeping, global heating at 1.5 above industrial levels. I just don't think it's anywhere near enough.
So this could be where she's not breaking down, is she still might not be a systems thinker because, she focuses on, let's say, investigative journalism, let's say. Okay, I'm not sure, but it sounds a little bit more like that. Instead of the systems thinking to understand how it's been way before COP28 that the tipping points were passed for 1.5 degree increase. So it's sad, but that could be part of it. It could be that her brain is not able to connect all together to know we've already passed that, like I am, because I also incorporate, the Earth System Sciences and the failed people primate momentum, which HSD prevents them to even move away from, even if somehow they wanted to all agree on the solutions as if there was a miracle. Their brains would still be incapable of actually making a shift in their lives. Like it's like asking a zombie, hey, you can stay in this town as long as you kind of just bite deer, don't bite people. Do you think a zombie can do that? Because it's really the people primates that actually can't self-correct. And the villains of history here, the elite, the rich, they kind of know that nothing is going to work and fix things, including carbon capture. And they kind of want to believe that, they love their kids and they'll be able to make sure their kids are in safe places. Although safe places, when the air and the water and systems are all interconnected, they kind of doubt that, but they can still live with themselves. So that'd be like a zombie too. A zombie would live with themselves saying, hey, I'm a zombie. If I have to bite my own kids, I'm going to do that.